Hello everyone, very good morning and welcome back to Crack Grade B. So today in this session we are going to talk about the EPFO examination, right? In the EPFO examination there is a section on auditing, and based on the previous year questions analysis, there have been very less of the questions asked from this particular topic. When I'm saying very less, that means I'm saying to minimal category of questions have been asked. So the important points that we wanted to cover under this particular session for auditing, number one has to be the CAG. The office of CAG is of the utmost importance for the EPFO examination because they do the auditing for the government sector, that means the government organization, and hence that becomes important. Apart from that, we will also be carrying out the detailed analysis of the provisions of auditing that are there in the Companies Act. Although let me tell you that auditing as a subject is quite a vast subject, right? You will need so many classes to cover the auditing, but do we need to do that? Obviously not. Why? Because the EPFO examination only demands that you should have a basic understanding about the auditing. Apart from that, the Companies Act provisions along with the CAG, that is the important thing that you need to remember from the perspective of your EPFO examination. So let's start from the Comptroller and Auditor General of India. Number one thing, this is a constitutional body, right? When I'm saying constitutional body, that means there can be different kinds of bodies: constitutional, statutory, executive body, but this one has been created by our constitution directly. Why? So this was existing from the British times, right, from the colonial times, but this particular body was made because in the independent India we needed an organization to uphold the financial propriety, right? So let's start with the functions as well as duties, tenure, etc. In CAG, everything is important. You cannot skip anything in the topic of Comptroller and Auditor General of India. So the Comptroller and Auditor General of India is the supreme audit institution established under the Article 148 of the Constitution of India. Now see, there are two words that are being used: Comptroller and the Auditor General of India. First of all, let's understand what is the meaning of the word audit. Audit means to check. Simple. Audit का मतलब होता है check करना. The transactions that have already happened in order to check them. And Comptroller and Auditor General, in the British sense, it also had the meaning that Comptroller and Auditor General of India used to what you can say, authorize the payments from the consolidated fund of state, right? But our Indian Comptroller and Auditor General of India, he does not have such powers. He does not have the power to authorize expenditure. If I hope that you understand what I mean to say, they do not have the power to authorize expenditure. They just have the power to check the expenditures that has been done on the prism of various kinds of what you can say, proprietary as well as a legal basis, and on prudence basis, whether the expenditure has been done on the prudent principles or not. So these are all the things that we are going to see. It has been established under Article 148 of the Constitution of India, very important. They are empowered to audit all receipts and expenditures of Government of India, state governments, including those of autonomous bodies and the corporations which are substantially financed by the government. So these are the powers that the Comptroller and Auditor General of India has. But apart from this, let me tell you, not all the government organizations are audited by the CAG. So this is just for the practical understanding that not all the government organizations, they are audited by the CAG. Although it has the powers, but obviously there is a limitation that we have, right? So because of those limitations, not everybody is audited by the CAG. Next, CAG is also the statutory auditor of the government-owned corporations, and he also conducts the supplementary audit of the government company. Suppose there is a government company and that government company has been audited by a private auditor, right? A private company or any other auditor apart from the CAG. So CAG has the right. What right CAG has? That it can order to conduct supplementary audit. Supplementary means like we do a recheck, right? So supplementary audit is a sort of recheck that CAG is authorized to do. This is the supplementary audit. So if the audit of any government company or corporation has been done by any other auditor apart from CAG, so CAG reserves the right to do the supplementary audit as well. Now, which are the government companies? So those who have the equity shares of at least 51% of the existing government companies. The reports of the CAG, they are laid before the parliament, legislature, and they are being taken up for discussion by the Public Accounts Committee, committees on the public undertakings, and which are special committees in the parliament and the state legislature. CAG is also the head of Indian Audit and Accounts Department. So there are various committees in the parliament, right? Some are called as ad hoc committee, some are called as the standing committees. Standing committee means these committees are permanent in nature. Ad hoc committee means which are made as per the requirement of time. That means, can I divide the parliamentary committees in two parts? One is called as permanent, that we call them as the standing committees, and the other one is known as the ad hoc. Ad hoc means this is temporary. These are for temporary periods. Who sit in these parliamentary committees? So the member of parliaments, though from Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, they sit in these parliamentary committees. What is the work of these parliamentary committees? So they study the reports of CAG on to the government corporations as well as on state governments and central governments. So now onwards you will see that what are the reports that are kept by CAG. But right now you have to understand this particular thing, that whatever reports have been kept by CAG in respect of central government, state governments and few of the public undertakings, that is taken up by the Public Accounts Committee, and the remaining organizations, the remaining government organizations, you really do not need to know that what government organizations are studied by Public Accounts Committee or public undertakings. There is no need. You just have to understand that whatever reports CAG gives to the parliament, this is the duty of the Comptroller and Auditor General of India, that first do the audit and then check everything, and after that report your findings in the parliament. ठीक है? Once the report is submitted to the parliament, after that the work of Public Accounts Committee and the Committee on Public Undertakings start. They see that particular report, they check out these things, and after that they give their own what you can say judgments. Fine, they give their own findings. Now a little bit of history. So in 1971 the central government enacted the Comptroller and Auditor General of India Act 1971. What was the need for this particular act? See, so CAG is a constitutional body, not a statutory body, right? Constitution has created CAG, but the parliament had the power to define the duties, powers, conditions of service, etc. Right? So in order to define all of that, central government has came up with this particular act of 1971. In 1976, CAG was relieved from the accounting functions. That means now they only perform the work of auditing. That means the work of checking, right? So this is the work that they perform. Now next is CAG is ranked 9th and enjoys the same status as the sitting judge of Supreme Court of India in the order of precedence. So order of precedence means in our constitution we have given the importance to the posts, right? That if a person is holding this particular post, then he is having this particular importance. That is called as a precedence. So in the order of precedence, that means the president, governors, chief ministers, as well as your speakers, right? Your vice president. So like that, there is an order of precedence. CAG is ranked 9th on that particular list, and he has the same status as the judge of Supreme Court. Currently, Shri Girish Chandra Murmu, he is the 14th CAG of India, right? So now let's talk about the appointment term and removal. CAG is appointed by whom? He is appointed by the President of India. Very, very important. All such things you need to remember, by a warrant under his hand and seal. Next thing, for how long they hold office? So they hold office for a period of 6 years or up to the age of 65 years, whichever is earlier. 65 or 6. He can resign at any time from his office. He can resign at any time from his office by addressing the resignation letter to the President. He can also be removed by the President on the same grounds and in the same manner as a judge of Supreme Court. So for removing a judge of Supreme Court, you need a special majority, right? Special majority means the majority of the members in the House as well as the majority, two-third majority of the people present and voting. So this is the special majority that is needed to remove the judge of Supreme Court, and the same thing applies over CAG as well. That means the Constitution has provided security of tenure to the CAG. Security of tenure has been provided. That means please perform your work without any fear or favor, and we are here to secure your tenure. That means no one can remove you from your position except until and unless the Parliament passes the resolution for your removal. Even in that, we need a special majority. That means the majority of all the members of the House, along with that two-thirds of members present and voting, right? So this is given on what grounds you can remove the COG, on the grounds of proved misbehavior or incapacity, right? So these are the two grounds given. Now what is the role of Comptroller and Auditor General of India? So he determines whether the money reported have been disbursed was legally available or not, right? So with the authority which has spent the money, whether that particular authority institution had the required authority to spend that money or not. The office can conduct a proprietary audit as well. Proprietary audit means it looks into the wisdom, faithfulness and economy of the government spending, whether government is spending correctly or not, right? Whether there has been the case of wasteful expenditure, such expenditures which was not needed, such expenditures which a prudent person would not have done if the business belonged to him. So such kind, this is the criteria that is taken by the CAG while doing the proprietary audit. Proprietary audit का मतलब ये होता है कि अगर मान लीजिए मेरे पास 1 लाख रुपए हैं, तो मैं अपने पैसों को कितना सोच कर खर्च करूंगी, right? So whether the government has applied same principle of prudence and consciousness over spending or not, ठीक है? Whether you have not done, you should not have done the reckless spending. So various times you might have seen that there have been CAG reports like on the coal related, the coal scam, why it was unearthed, because there was a CAG report onto that. So there have been very important role that was played by the CAG. Next is proprietary audit, on the other hand, is optional, unlike the legal and regulatory audit which is required for the CAG. The CAG auditing role is hampered by the secret service expenditure. See, so proprietary audit, if the CAG wants, then it can do. It is optional. It is voluntary for CAG. But legal and regulatory audit is important. What is legal and regulatory audit? So this is legal and regulatory audit. Whether the amount which has been spent was legally available or not. So if you have spent 2 lakh rupees, whether Parliament has authorized you to spend 2 lakh rupees or not, ठीक है? आपको ये CAG will look into the matter whether the Parliament has authorized you this particular expenditure or not. So this is why that is called as a legal and regulatory audit. This is compulsory, whereas conduct of the proprietary audit is optional. That means if CAG wants, then he can do that. Apart from that, CAG's auditing role is hampered by the secret service expenditure. Secret service expenditure का मतलब क्या? That means, just wait for a second. Yes. So secret service expenditure means, you might have seen so many movies like the Tiger series, Ek Tha Tiger. What they are doing? They are agents, like raw agents that we have. Fine. Research and analytics wing. So that is the secret service that India has. They are the spies, and yes, there is an underground network of them, and that is really important for the conduct of our international relations as well as for the security of our nation. So any amount that has been spent on the secret service, this is the limitation on the CAG's auditing role. They cannot do anything about them. In this case, the CAG cannot demand specifics on the expenditure made by the executive, but they will just accept a certificate, right? Executive will give them a certificate that, see, we have done this particular expenditure and this is it. So they will have to accept it. Next is duties. So CAG, what are the duties of the CAG? Let's just see them. So CAG audits the accounts related to all expenditures from the consolidated fund of India, consolidated fund of each state, and UTs, those who are having the legislative assembly. We have three funds in our hand: consolidated fund of India, contingency fund of India, and public accounts of India, right? So these are the three funds that we have, and any expenditure that is made out of these funds has to be audited by the CAG. CAG audits all expenditure from the contingency fund of India, as I have told, as well as the public account of India. You see, everything has to be audited, right? CAG audits all trading, manufacturing, P&L, balance sheet and other subsidiary accounts that have been kept by the departments of the central government and the state governments. Whatever accounts, trading, manufacturing or any sort of account, they all come under the financial statements, and hence they will be audited by the CAG. He ascertains and certifies the net proceeds of any tax or duty, and his certificate is final on the matter. That means this is related to revenue. How much revenue in form of tax has been earned by the government. So for this, the certificate is provided by the CAG. Okay, and whatever certificate, if CAG has said that from this particular tax government has received 1 lakh crores, then that is final. Okay, so they certify that what is the amount of rupees that the government has received from these taxes. Now when the president or governor requests, he also audits the finances of any other authority like the local governments. So the point to be noted over here is that local governments are not directly under the purview of CAG, but if the president or governor says, then he can audit the accounts of local government as well. He advises the president on the prescription of the form in which centers and states accounts to be kept. That means, like we have the formats of preparation of balance sheet and P&L, right? Like in Companies Act, we do have a format. For proprietary firms, partnership firms, they keep a separate format. So similarly, for government as well as the government corporations, CAG tells them the format of the accounts, that okay, you have to prepare the accounts in this particular format. Next, he sends his audit reports on the center's accounts to the president, who will present it to the both chambers of the parliament, right? So he gives this report to the president, and then president places those reports in the parliament. He also sends his audit reports pertaining to the state accounts. अब अगर state के accounts audit किए हैं, so to whom they will give the report? They will give to the governor, who will then present it to the state legislature. So Comptroller and the Auditor General of India, they also serve as a mentor, friend and philosopher to the Public Accounts Committee. See, Public Accounts Committee does the checking or the analysis of the CAG reports. So CAG has to explain that what they have done in that particular report. So CAG provides all sort of help that is required by the Public Accounts Committee. Getting my point? After that, he also advises to the President with regard to the prescription of the form in which the accounts of center and the states shall be kept. किस format में रखे जाने चाहिए, that we have already seen. Now talking about the compensation. So the salary and the other conditions of the services, they are determined by the Parliament of India. Why? Because they have enacted an act for this. There is a Comptroller and Auditor General Act 1971. This act was formed. Why? To provide the duties, powers as well as the conditions of service for the CAG. So, but still, please do not get confused. Please remember that CAG is a constitutional body, not a statutory body. Fine. Although the act has been made by the Parliament, but this is just to define the powers as well as duties more clearly. Okay. Next is the salary is same as that of a judge of Supreme Court. So from this particular thing, I remember one more point, that you have to remember that the removal of CAG will also be as per the removal of the Supreme Court or judges of Supreme Court of India. That means on the same grounds and the same process that is followed for the Supreme Court judges. So that is why there has been no one removed from the office, and in order to perform the work, such kind of decency is needed. After that, the CAG is also not eligible for the further office either under the Government of India or under the government of any state. The reappointment is not allowed for. Why? Because see, if the reappointment would be allowed, then in the lure of office they can do such act which will not be independent, right? They will be acting in the influence of either the central government or state governments. So we definitely do not want that, and therefore the reappointment is not allowed. After that, we have reports. So he submits his audit reports relating to the accounts of the center and the state to the President and Governor, who shall in turn place them before both the houses of Parliament and the state legislature. He submits 3 audit reports to the President. So this was the question that was already been asked. So number 1 is the audit report on the appropriation accounts, right? So this is the appropriation account, tells that where the money of the government is going, where you are spending. After that, point 2, we have the audit report on the finance accounts. Finance accounts, this talks about from where the revenue is coming. And thirdly, you also have the audit report on the public undertakings. So these are the 3 different audit reports that are submitted by the CAG. CAG is also now the external auditor of the World Health Organization as well as the Food and Agriculture Organization for these particular terms. So this was a current development, so that's why I have included it. Now, when we are done with the CAG concept, now let's start with the auditing concept. So before starting this, I would like to tell you one thing. The auditing concepts that I am going to discuss right now, they belong to the Companies Act 2013, right? All the provisions that have been told by the Companies Act 2013, they will also be included. The basic concepts of auditing are also included over here. We will be talking about that how the auditor is appointed in government companies, how the auditor is appointed in private companies. Both kinds of companies will be covered by us. So first of all, let's start about the concept of auditing, how the evolution has happened. So understand, earlier there were no such big enterprises, right? People were able to manage their organizations on their own because they were the single proprietor. So they do not have such a large amount of burdens. But as the industrial revolution came, the new kinds of industries came, fine. So this also led to increased burden. And now, because of the vast business, the owner himself was not able to have a strict eye on all transactions. For example, if you have a small business versus if you have a big business, which kind of business you will be able to have more focus on? Obviously, the small business, right? Small business पे आप ज़्यादा focus कर सकते हो. Every transaction you can check on their own. So that is why the need of audit does not arises. But this is not the case with the big businesses. In case of big businesses, you need an auditor. Why we need an auditor? Because the transactions are not being done by you. आप नहीं कर रहे हो वो transactions. So you need to have certain persons, those who will check the transaction of your business on your behalf. Such people, they are called as the auditors. So this is what has been told over here. After the Industrial Revolution in the 18th century, large-scale businesses, they came into existence. Now, when the large-scale businesses came into the existence, it was necessary to have the representatives of the owner, those who checked and verified the accounts. So this gave rise to the concept of auditing. The first legislation that came in India was the Joint Stock Companies Act 1857. It also introduced the concept of company, and it also brought in the audit. That means the concept of auditing was also brought in over here. Later, the Indian Companies Act 1956, it also came, and after 1956 Act, we also have the Indian Companies Act 2013. So both of these, that means the 2013 as well as the Companies Act 1956, they introduced auditing as a compulsory mechanism, right? Earlier that was voluntary, but now it has been made compulsory. So if you are a company, you are carrying on your business, you need to have the mandatory auditing into your business, right? And let me give you the disclaimer again. See, auditing is vast. Auditing is, there are too many things that you need to cover in the auditing, but everything is not important for you over here. Neither the questions will be asked onto this, because the auditing, the concepts related auditing, you are this is being required by the UPSC, that you understand the basic principles of auditing or the basic things about auditing. They do not want you to have a PhD in auditing. So that is why that's our concern. Now, the Chartered Accountant Institutes, it defines the auditing as it is an independent examination of data, statements, records, performance of the business enterprise for a purpose, right? So when you are checking the accounts or the financial statements of an enterprise, because you want to find out whether these statements are true and fair in nature or not. You want to find out this, whether they are true and fair or not, whether they represent the actual status as well as the position of business or not. So this is what the function of the auditing. While doing the auditing, what an auditor does, so the person who conducts the audit is called as the auditor, right? What I meant to say, the person who conducts the audit is called as the auditor. There are various kinds of auditing, like we have tax audit. Tax related audit is performed by your chartered accountant, right? Tax audits, statutory audits, etc. Apart from that, we have cost audit, that is for the cost component. This is performed by a CMA. Apart from that, we also have the secretarial audit, that is also has been included. This is related to whether you are complying with all the laws, rules and regulations or not. So secretarial audit is performed by the CS. So there are different professionals who conduct these kinds of audit. Like right now you have GST as well. So GST audit can be done by a CA as well as a CMA. So both have the right regarding this. So the purpose of telling you this was that a business enterprises transactions are vast, right? they are doing tax related transactions, they are doing cost related transactions, etc., etc. So the audits are also different. There is tax audit, cost audit, GST audit, and different kinds of audit. Now there is an audit, under that you check whether your financial statements represent true and fair value or not. That is called as a statutory audit. Statutory audit means that has been compulsory under the law, and that audit is more comprehensive, right? So your statutory audit is more comprehensive. So the purpose of telling you this was that yes, there are different professionals and different kinds of audit. Now let's see what these professionals do in the audit. So first of all, they see that what they have to do. First of all, they have to understand the task. After that, they have understood that okay, we have to do tax audit. That means tax related aspects we have to check. Then they do collecting of evidence. After collecting the evidence, they judge the evidence, whatever they have collected, whether it's right or not. Fine. So suppose in relation to tax audit, I was checking everything and I found out 2-3 transactions which are suspicious in nature. So they will form my evidence. That is very easy. Now, after obtaining those evidences, I will formulate my judgment. Okay? My judgment that okay, what I have understood out of this. Now next is the essential features of auditing. Let's understand the essential features of auditing. So an intelligent and critical examination of the books of accounts, right? What it involves: verification of the evidences and the documents. You check all the documents, you check all the evidences, whatever you have, records, etc., so that whether you are able to understand the financial statements or not. See, what you have to do, you have to give an opinion. आपको एक opinion देनी है what you have understood from this particular financial statements, and you will be able to give your opinion once you have done the analysis of all transactions. So audit is analytical, critical, and investigative, right? Whatever management has given to you, you will not believe on to it. ठीक है, जो कंपनी ने दे दिया क्या मैं उस पर भरोसा कर लूं? बिल्कुल नहीं. What I will do, I will just see, I will apply my own mind, I will investigate the things, and after that I will form a review or a judgment. The fine information which is audited, it may be financial and non-financial. An auditor should be competent and independent as well as qualified. So we will going forward in our lecture, we will also see that what are the disqualifications of an auditor. That means what kind of person is not allowed to be an auditor, right? So all such kind of things also we will be seeing, but yes, in a brief. Next is relationship and distinction between the accounting and auditing. What is the relation between both of them? So accounting, it analyzes the events and transactions. These are the similarities. Accounting also records the data. Auditing evaluates the evidence. Accounting prepare financial statements. Here, fairness of financial statements are taken. Accounting is first and auditing starts where the accounting ends. So these are the things between the auditing and accounting. Let's talk about the auditing. See, accounting involves the preparation of data, whereas auditing involves seeing that data, talking about it, finding evidences, right? Finding loopholes, finding any problems. So it starts where the accounting ends. Once the accounting ends, after this particular process of auditing starts. Now, talking about the difference, this is important. It is a collection, classification, and summarization of data. Auditing is analytical and critical examination of the data. Auditing can be called as a post-mortem examination. Post-mortem examination means Because when post-mortem happens, when a person has died after that. So similarly, when auditing happens, when the books of accounts has already been prepared, when the transactions have already been recorded. Auditor is an independent person and the accountant, his independence is not required as such, right? We do not have anything to do with accountant's independence, but our auditor should be independent. Auditor should be independent means there should be no interest involved with the auditor and the company, right? Apart from the remuneration, auditor should not have any sort of financial interest in the company. Auditor gives his report to the clients. Clients means the management who has appointed the auditor. We will see that there are differences as well. Audit report is given by an auditor to whom in private company and to whom in the government company. So there are the variations regarding that as well. Now let's talk about the aspects which needs to be covered in the audit. So first of all, accounting and internal control system. Internal control system means how you are governing your business. See, if in my business I am the person who does all the books, all the cash related entries, then I should have a person above me. That person should be responsible to check my work. This is called as internal control, whether you have established such kind of control into your business or not. Fine. So number one thing, you also have to see that whether the business principles and business's internal control is strong enough or not. Then after that, you will examine the books. You will see that the financial statements have been prepared correctly, whether for every transaction there is evidence or not. Every transaction should have the supportings. Every transaction should be attached with a particular document. Suppose I have paid the salary to a person. I have done the entry of salary. Now this should be attached with the copy of the check or the salary receipt that I have provided to the person involved. So there every transaction should be involved with the evidence. After that, there should be compliance with the generally accepted accounting principles. Accounting principles we have already seen, right? So accounting principles means what? There are certain conventions, certain rules and regulations that one has to follow while preparation of accounts. So whether while preparing the accounts you have followed all the rules and regulations or not. So this is called as the compliance with the generally accepted accounting principles. And after that, the reporting. Whatever you have found out as an auditor, you have to report to the shareholders, to the board of directors, like that. Fine, because these are the persons who have appointed you. These are the persons who want to know that what is the position of the business is going on. After that, we have fundamentals of auditing. What are the fundamentals of auditing? First of all, concept of true and fair, right? Concept of true and fair says that whether you have been able to find out that business is doing as per the required norms or not. So what constitutes true and fair? It has not been defined in any legislation, but still Companies Act says that books of accounts will be found out as true and fair if that follows all the provisions of Schedule 3 to the Act. Schedule 3 talks about the balance sheet and P&L. Right? So whether all the things have been followed regarding the balance sheet and P&L preparation norms, any notification, any order of central governments, whether they have been complied or not. If they have been complied, then we will call that yes, all the norms of the accounting has been followed, and that is why we will refer such accounts as the true and fair. So these were the fundamentals of auditing. These were the basics of the auditing that we wanted to cover, right? Apart from that, we have also discussed about CAG today. Now in the upcoming lecture tomorrow, I will be discussing the provisions which are related to audit under the Companies Act. So this is it for this particular session. Thank you so much for joining in, and stay tuned for our another lecture. The another lecture is an important one because we'll be discussing that how the government or how the auditors are appointed in the government companies as well as the private companies. So thank you so much.